You're listening to the Next Level Construction Management Podcast, celebrating unapologetic greatness, proudly promoting meritocracy, and daring to be different by design. Here's your host, Rob Crum, ready to take your construction management performance to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Next Level Construction Management Podcast, taking your construction management performance to the next level. Very excited about this week's episode. This is a really important topic. Today we're going to be talking about a concept I've termed passive learning. This episode is going to be beneficial to everyone, whether you're in construction management or not, since this concept will apply to all fields of work. So let's get this going, explain what I'm talking about next. All right, so this passive learning philosophy. Now, as it relates directly to construction managers, it's going to directly apply to some of the more junior level positions, project engineers, assistant project managers, project coordinators, some of the younger project managers. But it's also going to be important for positions above that because number one, you're still going to be able to apply this position to your level. But number two, I'll be providing critical information for you that you can use to relay and manage the personnel working for you so you can help them develop much quicker. All right, passive learning. What the hell am I talking about? What is this? No, I'm not talking about learning by osmosis or anything like that. I'm talking about something very simple and easy to understand and apply. All you need to do is be aware of what it is and then take the initiative to do it. But before I explain what it is, I'm going to set the table with a dose of some brutal honesty here. Your project manager. Now I'm speaking directly to those project engineers, APMs, coordinators, younger PMs. Your project manager, supervisor, is never going to have the amount of time that you would like for them to train you on all the tasks you need to learn. That level of training just is not going to happen. In this episode, I'm going to be using submittals as our primary example, but this concept is going to apply to most tasks. Now, as it relates to submittals, if you're looking for them on any given project, whether you have a handful of trades you're responsible for, or whether you're doing them all, whatever it is, anytime you're tasked with reviewing a submittal, the likelihood that your supervisor is going to have the time to train you specifically on that submittal, that time's just not going to be there. And that is why understanding and applying this concept of passive learning is so critically important. But before I get into the specifics of what I'm talking about with passive learning, let's get the corporate disclaimer out of the way. The opinions expressed on this podcast are mine and mine alone, and do not represent those of any former or current employers. Okay, passive learning. Let me explain by way of an example. And as I mentioned, we're going to go back to the old reliable submittals. Okay, so you're a project engineer. And let's say you have a project where you've received this week, we'll call it 6 submittals that you need to initially review and submit to the design team for final review and approval. Now, we've already discussed that we don't want to rubber stamp them and we want to give them that constructability form and function review. But as is typically the case, we're always under pressure to get them reviewed and submitted as quickly as possible due to our tight project schedules and material lead times. So let's say we have a week to get them reviewed and submitted. Well, again, the likelihood that your supervisor is going to have time to sit down with you and train you on how to review each and every one of those, it's slim to none. Because the reality is that even if the time was made, it would be made in sacrifice of other tasks that they have to do. And there's probably another 5 or 6 submittals coming next week, and another 5 or 6 coming from the subs the week after that, and another handful on another project as well. So their ability to delay their task to provide that training to you, no, not going to happen. This is simple algebra with time and tasks as the variables, and there is no proof. So if you want to expedite your career development and start to separate yourself, applying passive learning, it is such an easy way to do it. And another great thing about it, it's something that very few people think to do because on the surface, as we'll explain later, it can sometimes seem like a waste of time. But let's look at a singular submittal example here. So let's say on Monday, that project engineer gets tasked with reviewing a light fixture submittal, and maybe they get asked to review it by Wednesday. In this case, the PM probably wants to get it submitted to the design team by Friday, so they'll ask them to get it done on Wednesday so they can review it on Thursday, make any small revisions, and then submit it on Friday. Well, Wednesday comes, you follow up with them, and it's, I didn't get to it. I just didn't have time, but I'll review it tomorrow. Check on it Thursday. Surprise, surprise. Nope. Still not done. Get another. Sorry, I'm still running short on time, but I'm going to try to get it done by the end of the day. So then on Friday morning, you get up, take a look, still not done. So obviously at that point, you're thinking, all right, I just have to get this thing done. I'm going to go ahead, knock it out, get it submitted. So you go ahead, review it, process it, send it to the design team. Now next comes one of the more frustrating parts of this example. And it normally starts when the person tasked with doing it tells me they're frustrated that I did it for them. Which, that's not bad though, because it leads to a very honest conversation. When I explained to them that I only did it because there was a deadline to get it submitted and we were up against that deadline. And we were up against that deadline primarily because they didn't get it done when promised. So as we continue the conversation more, the actual answer of why they didn't do it gets flushed out. When eventually they say something like, well, I know I said I was short on time, but truthfully, I just didn't know how to review the submittal, really what to look for. I really just need some more training on it. I don't feel like I have enough experience to feel comfortable reviewing it. Okay, let's review some of the things that happened here though. Number one, you put your project manager in a really tough spot because they trusted that you'd meet the deadline first on Wednesday and then again on Thursday. But since you didn't, they had to rearrange their schedule on the fly on Friday and probably had to put off doing some other tasks they expected to get done. Had you been honest from the start and just stated that you wouldn't be able to meet the deadline for whatever reason, not having time, not having experience, needing training, a fucking alien mothership landed in your backyard, abducted your dog, and was threatening you with intergalactic war. I don't give a rat's ass the reason. But because you promised something you inherently knew you weren't comfortable delivering, they were not able to plan their week accurately. They could have got in early. They could have stayed late. Whatever they would have had to do, they could have adjusted to make sure that submittal got done and the other task they ended up having to delay on Friday. But that wasn't done, and they got left holding the bag. Next, regarding the honest answer of, I just didn't know how to review that submittal, what to look for, I need some more training, I don't have experience. Okay, this is actually what the concept of passive learning is rooted in. Because as I've already stated, there's not going to be enough time for all that training from your supervisor on every task and every submittal. If only there was a way to supplement that training with an outside company or consultant. More to come on that later. But you weren't comfortable reviewing this submittal, and your PM didn't have time to train you on it. So now what? Submittal still had to get submitted by the deadline to meet the schedule, so delaying the review and submission until the PM had time to train you on it, that's not an option. So the PM just had to get it reviewed and submitted. Well, moving forward, it's still just luck of the draw if the PM will have time to train you on the next project's light fixture submittal. So where does that leave you? Yeah, in exactly the same position of uncomfortableness and inexperience moving forward that you're at right now. And you'll probably just take the woe is me, well, it's not my fault, I haven't been trained, bullshit, soft as a Charmin on a baby's ass excuse. No, fuck that. You need to take accountability for your own development, not expect others to go out of their way to take care of it for you. Now, as far as I'm concerned, mine and any other project manager's goal should be what? Come on, team. What? Yes, build it right the first time, period. That is the primary goal. Of course, training and developing the people you're working with, yes, that's an ancillary goal, but that is not the primary goal. And I'm not taking L's on the project to ensure your feelings of personal development goals are being attended to. Now, I'm going to explain more on kind of this cutthroat line of thinking shortly, because I can already hear some people, well, you know, training your people is an investment, blah, 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 blah. I got it. I've heard it before. I'll hear it again. Point stipulated. But, as William Wallace so famously said, yes, hold. First, let's talk about how you can take that accountability for your own development. Now, the first obvious answer here is communicate better. Don't immediately default to the I didn't have time excuse, when in actuality, you didn't feel comfortable reviewing it and were not even sure how to do the submittal review. Be upfront with that information, because had you mentioned that on Monday, there is a possibility that time could have been set aside to train you on it. But come Thursday or Friday, when that reason finally gets disclosed, it's too late for that. The work now just has to get done. But again, we're going to dive into the training component shortly. Second, and this is where we really get into the meat and potatoes of what passive learning is all about. Now, I'm calling it passive learning, but honestly, that name may give it a negative connotation. Because I certainly don't want you to think it's a sit on your ass and wait for things to happen method. Because it's quite the opposite. I've named it this only because it's learning that is not being directly taught by someone. You're not sitting in someone's office going through things one-on-one. You're not sitting in a classroom, a conference room, with an instructor going through it more of a classroom style with a large group of people or anything like that. So it's passive in the manner that it's not direct. But it's certainly not passive in the manner to which the word can be defined. Because candidly, as you'll understand shortly, it requires that you take a lot of initiative. It basically looks at the situation and says, okay, the time's not there for the direct education and training, but I'm going to take the initiative and use what is available to me and do. Let me use a real example of something that recently happened to me at my house to help set the table for what I'm going to explain next and hopefully help get ahead of the counter position. So, excuse me, my son, he's in 2nd grade. He recently tried out for the school's talent show. Now, after the auditions, he didn't think he was going to be selected. So he comes home from school the day of the audition, kind of down in the dumps. And he says something like, I don't think I'm going to be picked, so I don't want to practice my routine anymore. For context, he did a knock-knock joke comedy act. Now understand, the week leading up to the audition, we practice his act a couple times a night. But here he is. He doesn't think he's going to make the show, so now he doesn't want to, his words, waste time practicing if I'm not going to make the show. Okay, teachable moment here. And as I've said before, please be better than my 8-year-old. So I told him, I said, look, it's never a waste of time to do. If we end up practicing for the next 2 or 3 days before you find out you made it and you don't end up making it, all right, what happened? You got some additional practice at public speaking, something that people can really struggle with, and you're working on learning this great life skill. So you get some additional practice at learning and remembering your script and your jokes. Point being that the practice doesn't have to translate specifically to using them at that talent show. Getting better at these skills, these are important life skills. So preparing for the show as a platform to work on those skills, that's a great opportunity. So the obvious takeaway, don't look at it as a waste of time just because it might not translate to something at that moment. Think bigger picture, play the long game. Use that platform as an opportunity to improve those skills that could help in next year's talent show and certainly help in life beyond that. Well, the same principle applies to the submittal example in this regard. Passive learning is going to stipulate that the project engineer goes back after the project manager has reviewed and submitted that submittal and then does their review. Yes, after it's been reviewed and submitted. Wait, you had to have said that wrong. No, that sounds like a waste of time, Rob. So you want to review a submittal that's been reviewed? Yeah, that's definitely a waste of time. I don't know if I can do that. Well, what about that law of counterintuitiveness? It's actually an incredible, valuable use of time. Remember, just because the submittal was reviewed and sent by your PM and that task is now technically done, doesn't mean going back and reviewing it yourself is a waste of time. This is truly passive learning at its finest. Think about it this way. You need to learn something, and your PM just finished it and essentially is providing the answer key to the test for what you need to learn. It is at your fingertips. If you were in high school, how quick could you dive across the room to get your hands on that answer key? Well, this is no different. The PM just sent the submittal with their comments. So, got an idea. Why don't you print a blank copy of the submittal, set it aside. I know, get off my lawn, talking about printing things again. Just work with me here. Then print a copy of the submittal that your PM sent in. Take a look and see what they reviewed and noted. Ask them for their notes on other items that they identified that maybe weren't captured directly in their submittal review to see what those were as well. And then after you review all this, set it aside, grab your blank copy, give it a review. Then compare the two, see if you have questions on anything, see what you missed. Ask them for a few minutes at a time to go over those questions. So sorry, doing it again is not a waste of time, especially when you are in a role that a large component of your job is to learn, improve, and grow. So I'm calling it passive learning, but it is very initiative driven. You have to take that initiative to do. And besides, you're not doing it again anyways, because you never did it. In the process I just described, it might take an hour or two to do that. But that follow-up with the PM to go over your questions, that could take 15 or 30 minutes. And then what? Now, fast forward to the next time you receive that light fixture submittal on a future project. You're probably going to be chomping at the bit to take a crack at it. Your confidence on that topic will be substantially higher. And because you're applying all these next level management principles, you would have scanned and saved those notes from that prior review, so you'll be able to pull those up and refresh your memory and use as a guideline. And this philosophy, you can apply this to RFIs, owner and sub pay apps, project budgets, submittal logs, meeting minutes, meeting preparation, basically anything that you haven't done, but you want to learn to do either for the job you're doing now or the job you want to progress to, any of those tasks you're patiently waiting for that training on. Take and apply this approach, and you will see your development skyrocket past your peers. So take the initiative. Stop finding reasons and excuses for why you couldn't do something. Don't become what I humorously refer to as why I can't guy. We've all worked on a project where someone, could be someone on your team, maybe someone on the subcontractor side, a foreman, a PM, an owner vendor, an architect, someone. But we've all ran into someone who is why I can't guy. This is the person, and I'm going to use a real example of something I dealt with in the past. So steam starts to come out of my ears. I apologize. I'm just having some PTSD on this. So I released a door submittal. A day or so later, I follow up with the PM for confirmation that the order was released. Then they come back and say something like, oh, well, we needed these couple door frames clarified before we can release the order. Okay. So I get that info right over to them, follow up again. And now it's, well, we need to get these 3 door hardware things clarified before I can release the order. I clarify those things, then it's, well, now we need these other 2 things clarified. I clarify those things, they come back with something else to clarify. Every time I gave them an answer, I got 2 more questions in return. Always an excuse for why they couldn't do their job. Never a solution and reason for why they could. So, after I answered everything I thought they needed, they finally don't reply with any more questions. I follow up a few weeks later on the entire doors, frames, and hardware order, thinking that, okay, the material had like an 8-week lead time. It's been 3-4 weeks since I sent the final clarifications to them, so I should be on track to get my materials in about a month. All right, it's right in line with my schedule. It's cutting it kind of close, but I'm still okay. Only to hear that one door hardware, door handles color selection, which wasn't clarified in the original return submittal, never mentioned to me in any of the multiple follow-up conversations on what they need to release the order. And because of that, nothing on the order was placed. One fucking door handle, and now my entire project schedule is in jeopardy. I don't have door frames on order yet. I don't have doors on order yet. I don't have 99% of the other hardware on order yet. Nothing ordered because they constantly look for a reason not to do their fucking jobs. This is why I can't guy. Why I can't guy is the person that finds a reason never to do their job. Now, I don't know whether it's just a stall tactic because of their workload, paralysis of analysis, fear of making a decision that could be wrong. Could be that they're just plain stupid or incompetent. I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. I just need people with the same get shit done mentality and not this I can't way of thinking. So when you start to default to excuses like, I haven't been trained, and don't apply the passive learning method, you unfortunately could be, are, or are already why I can't guy. And most excuses given, they're flimsy at best and bullshit at worst. And it's usually leaning more towards bullshit. It's just these bullshit reasons that are seriously so easy to sidestep. Honestly, in this profession, life in general, if you don't learn how to go around, under, over, and eventually fucking through issues, you are not going to be successful. If you are constantly waiting for the perfect situation, the perfect scenario before making every decision, before doing any task, if you're wanting your risk to be 0 before you feel comfortable making decisions, honestly, you are just going to fail. Life is about risk management, not risk avoidance. And you're probably going to fail at damn near everything you do, professionally and beyond. You have to find solutions. You have to find reasons and ways to get things done, not reasons for ways not to do things. Okay. Now let's tie this all back together and circle back to what I mentioned earlier about needing to take accountability for your own development and not expecting others to go out of their way to take care of it for you. Now, as I've said, I'm not going to allow the project to fail because you haven't taken that initiative for your own development. I love this clip of Phil Handy. He was an assistant with the Lakers when Kobe was playing, and it reveals why Kobe told him why he didn't pass the ball to his teammates.
He was misunderstood, man. I asked him one time, Matt, I said, man, why are you such an asshole? I asked him that. And he said, you really want to know? Mm-hmm. You know how he was. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, Phil, man, some of my teammates don't understand the work. He said, so I see dudes walk into practice 10 minutes before practice and they leave right after. Why the fuck am I going to pass them the basketball? I don't respect their work ethic. I'm in here busting my ass every day trying to perfect my craft, and these dudes don't want to work on their game. I don't trust them. So I'm not going to pass them the basketball. I'm going to ride them hard every day. Made perfect sense when he really broke it down as to why he is the way he is with certain dudes. I was just like, man, I respect it.
Now, keep that video in the back of your head as I continue. The most common excuse I hear is where people will say that they haven't been trained or time is not being allocated for that training. So now they feel frustrated that they're being asked to do tasks that they haven't been trained on. Okay, devil's advocate here. Because they've almost always been exposed to the task in general, but maybe not specifically trained on it. So taking that excuse for what it's worth, here's my typical response. Okay, well here's what we need to do then. If you want additional training above and beyond what is currently available in either of our schedules, here's what we need to do. Now, before I finish this statement, understand the situation is almost always one where I'm working 11 to 12 hours a day and the person requesting the training is working 8 to 9 hours a day. Now, that being said, let me finish my prior statement to the person. Then here's what we need to do. I don't care if it's every day, if it's one day a week, whatever it is. How about we shoot to do training every day to really get you trained up on reviewing those submittals. So we'll make it 1 hour a day and we'll shoot to review one submittal a day. But here's what that entails. I'm going to need you to get into work an hour earlier than normal or stay an hour later so that we give ourselves the hour to do that training. Now that doesn't mean that if they're working 8 to 5 and if they decide to get in an hour earlier and get in at 7, we're necessarily going to do the training at 7 to 8. The training could be from 7 to 8. It could be 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning. It could be 2 to 3 p.m. It doesn't matter. But here's what it prevents, and this is why I require them to commit to this additional hour. So let's say for ease of numbers that on average I'm working 11 hours a day, so 55 hours a week. And they're working, we're going to give them benefit of the doubt. They're on the high end of that 8 to 9. We're going to say they're working 9 hours a day, so 45 a week. Now this is important for them to understand about this request. So let's run this out to its logical conclusion. If that trainee won't work that extra hour, let's ask the great question, and then what? So then every day that week, I know I'm losing 1 hour between, we'll call it 2 to 3 for that training. So that time I would otherwise have available to do my other tasks that still have to get completed and probably with no delay to their completion. So I'm working 11 hours a day. Ease of numbers, let's just say it's 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. So for me, instead of getting in at 6 a.m., I'll get in at 5 a.m. So I'm going to have that extra hour to account for the hour of work I'm not getting done when I'm doing the training. That's a pretty reasonable and responsible adjustment, right? Okay, so now I'm going to go from 55 hours a week to 60 hours a week. No big deal. Again, it is an investment, but now I'm at 60 hours a week and you're still at the same 45. Now, if this is where it ended, I probably wouldn't take such a hardline stance on this, but that is the perception is reality viewpoint of the situation. Let's continue rolling down the tracks on the logic train and see what the final destination is. And then what? Now, I just described to my workload what happens when I add this extra hour of training into my schedule. I lose an hour of productivity. Well, isn't the same going to be true for the trainee? So if they're working 9 hours a day, and I'm going to assume that they're working 9 hours a day, But if we take an hour away from them for the training, they're now only getting 8 hours of work done. And being that the work they're tasked with doing is extremely important and foundational to the success of the project, and like my workload, it's still going to need to get done without any delays. Guess who ends up having to step up and get the work done for them that they didn't do? Yes, this guy. So now, I have to get in another hour earlier to do the hour of work they didn't get done. So now I'm getting in at 4 a.m. and not leaving till 5 p.m. and working 13 hours a day. So now I'm up to 65 hours a week while you're still just leisurely cruising along at 9 hours and 45 hours a week. No, I am sorry. That is where the issue lies. You cannot expect others to burn the candle on both ends, especially when they are willing to make time for you and are willing to come in an extra hour to help your development. If you're not willing to put in that same additional time, then you cannot expect others to help you. That is a very important thing to understand for both the trainer and the trainee. Understanding that time clock math of what that training entails. Now think back to what Kobe said. If they just want to show up right on time and leave right at the end of the day and aren't willing to put that additional work in, even when it's directly benefiting them, why am I going to go out of my way for them? How can I trust them when it matters? So stop waiting for things to happen. Stop waiting for someone to train you. Stop waiting for someone to ask you to do things. Stop waiting, giving excuses, waiting, more excuses. Fucking do. Be relentless. Whew. All right, we ended the show today with a bang. All right, please send any questions, comments, or feedback to comments.nextlevelmanagement@gmail.com. Also, please find Next Level Construction Management with Rob Crum on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Please give the show a follow. And reminder, all episodes are up on YouTube, Rumble, and Spotify. As always, if you could, please reshare, repost the videos and reels. Thanks, everyone. God bless America. And as always, Team GSD, be relentless.
Thank you for watching the Next Level Construction Management Podcast.